Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, December the 28th, 2023. A couple of days ago, I talked about Barack Obama, and I suggested that he might be having an influence on the president and his administration. We might not actually see it, but behind the scenes, there's reason to believe that Obama might be trying to make his presence felt. And, I was reading the comments to a video, and someone suggested that maybe the person who's really wielding influence might be Jill Biden, Joe Biden's wife. And I hadn't really thought about that. She's younger than him. She knows what's going on, so it might be reasonable to think that she is indeed having some influence on him. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity to look at Jill Biden's horoscope. We have a date of birth, we have a time of birth, so there's no reason why we can't set our chart up. And yeah, there's some really interesting stuff going on with her chart, particularly her moon, and that's something I want to share with you. And I also want to consider, what kind of power she might have. Is she the kind of person to try to influence things? Is she the kind of person, to try to be manipulative? How does she relate to the United States as a whole? So these are some of the things I want to look at later on in the video. But first of all, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Thursday, December the 28th, 2023. So let's look at the chart for today. So there, top right, there's Jill Biden. And here is the chart for today. It is set for New York at noon today, December the 28th. So probably the main aspect today is a square between Mars and Neptune. Now there's Mars, 2452 Sagittarius, and there's Neptune, 2502 Pisces. This Mars-Neptune square is, I wouldn't have said particularly fortunate. Mars is the way we assert ourselves. Mars is what we put our energy into. Neptune is a planet sort of connected with sort of chaos and deception, things happening under the surface, and it's not an easy combination, Mars square Neptune. As I often say with Mars-Neptune contacts, it can be connected with sleaze, getting involved in things we shouldn't be getting involved with. For example, crime, drugs, the dark underside of life. That's one way in which we can see Mars square Neptune manifesting. Mars is an angry planet. It's an aggressive planet. So Mars square Neptune, it can put its energy into things that are really quite self-defeating. So we can be trying really hard to get something done, and actually we're not moving at all. So we do have to be, a bit careful there. If we want quick results, and we assert ourselves in the effort to get quick results, we might be disappointed. There's also something a bit sly about Mars square Neptune. People asserting themselves in underhand ways, underhand secretive ways. Um, so that's one way in which Mars square Neptune could work. Or this Mars square Neptune has been building up. It's been active. Over the last couple of days. So, for example, sort of recently we've had a Russian landing ship was, I think, completely destroyed by a Ukrainian missile, and the Russians didn't see it coming, or they even if they did see it coming, they weren't able to do anything about it. And the Russians are supposed to have good air defense; they couldn't stop it, and this landing ship was apparently completely destroyed. Now that you could say, I suppose, if you're a supporter of Ukraine, or rather a supporter of, Ukraine sponsors, the UK, for example, that's the kind of thing the UK gets involved with. You might think, oh, that's really good. Some Russian ship getting destroyed, Mars square Neptune. That fits perfectly, a bit underhand as well, that was only, that was when the Mars square Neptune aspect wasn't even exact. So that might be a manifestation of how the Mars square Neptune is involved, might be working. And there's a reminder there that Neptune is connected with the sea. So a ship getting destroyed by Mars, that fits. And water. So, be careful around water with Mars square Neptune. It's not really a good time to go swimming, for example, or for trying to fix your plumbing, or something like that. So yeah, we do have to be careful with that. And matters are made worse by the fact that there is a conjunction between Mercury and Mars right now. I think by and large, for most of us, that conjunction was exact yesterday. But again, it's still working its influence through. I mean, Mercury is actually acting like a trigger. Mars is a slower moving planet than Mercury generally, but Mercury is coming along and triggering it, and it's all coming together. And yes, with Mercury Mars, like yesterday, we've got to be careful about how we communicate. And we need to realize that some people might be verbally aggressive, and we don't want to fall for that. We don't want to rise to the bait. So if people are making a lot of noise, people are being aggressive, being provocative, we should just ignore them, or perhaps even humor them. So don't take it to heart. And for our part, we should really avoid being verbally aggressive. It might sound impressive, but with Mars square Neptune, we could be aggressive about something that is really stupid. We might misunderstand what's going on, something like that. So we do have to be careful there. I should also point out that the moon, there's the moon, late Cancer, is opposition Pluto. So with moon opposition Pluto, that does indicate powerful feelings, feelings that people are keeping to themselves, but nonetheless feelings which are very strong, and people might use emotional manipulation to try to change things, maybe to change things in their favor. Now, the moon is about to move into Leo. Now, if you're in the Americas, then late in the day, you will experience moon in Leo. So if you're in New York, the moon moves into Leo at 7:23 p.m. If you're in Los Angeles, it's at 4:23 p.m. If you're in Europe, Asia, Australasia, it doesn't really affect you. The moon is going to be in Cancer all day long. So if you're in the Americas, you might see a sudden change late in the day when the moon moves from Cancer to Leo. perhaps less emotion. People are more going to be perhaps wanting attention. So I don't know what you're doing this evening, but if you're out and about, mixing with friends, and you're in America, then watch out for that change. And it may be that the best way to get results is to use a bit of gentle flattery. So that's the overall picture for today, for Thursday, December the 28th. And so what I want to do now is go through the 12 signs. So these are my star sign forecast for today, which is Thursday, December the 28th, 2023. Aries. Aries, you do have to be careful, because there is a danger that you apply yourself in the wrong areas. You know, you get excited about something, you believe that you should be putting all your energy in one particular direction, and that direction could be completely the wrong direction. And, you know, in the process, you could actually embarrass yourself. It does seem that you've got a lot to say, but you know, if you are, you know, saying a lot, particularly if you're being critical of other people, you've got to ask yourself why. What assumptions have you made? And there is, you know, there is this danger that actually you've made false assumptions. You've got things wrong. So Aries, I think you need to be very careful. You mustn't jump to conclusions. And at the same time, you know, I've already said for everyone we need to be careful around sort of water, plumbing, that kind of thing. But for you, Aries, it's particularly important. So, you know, don't do anything stupid, don't take risks, don't go water skiing, that kind of thing. But yeah, if you can just keep your calm and not get distracted, then, you know, there's no reason why it shouldn't be an okay day. Taurus. Well, Taurus, I believe that you can have a successful day. I think from a social perspective, I think you can be very effective. You know, now is the time for reaching out and getting in contact with people, perhaps people who you haven't been in contact for some time. You know, this is because Venus, your ruling planet, is aspecting the Sun node midpoint. The Sun node midpoint is very much about contacts. It's about making your presence felt. And so, you know, making phone calls, telling people that you're still alive, that would be a great way of using today's energies in an effective way. But when you are communicating, do keep it simple. What you don't want to do is create uncertainty. You don't want to create sort of a feeling that you know, people are thinking, well, what actually do you want? If you do want something, be clear about it. Don't hide your desires. So what you must not do is get in touch with someone for a particular reason which you want. Maybe it's a selfish reason, and just say something, well, you know, I just wanted to call you, whatever. If you've got a reason, if you want to call, if you've got a reason for getting in touch with someone, I think it's very important that you're absolutely clear about that reason. Gemini. I think that today you might actually be a bit concerned about money. I mean, this has been going on, you know, for a day or two. I think money is starting to weigh on your mind a bit. You know, it's this thing. Just keep thinking about it. Keep worrying about it. The money matters, does it? that might make you, in certain situations, a bit uptight. Particularly if other people are discussing money, and you're kind of thinking, well, hold on, maybe I'm going to have to buy something or shell out something. You don't want to do that, and it's going to make you nervous. Um, it is true that you have to consider money, but you don't really want to obsess about it. And I think that ideally you should try to avoid financial issues. At the same time, Mercury, your ruler, is still it's still conjunct Mars. I think that conjunction was really very close yesterday, and Mercury is still making a square to Neptune. And so I think you do have to be careful about what you say, and also to an extent what you think. Because, I know that Geminis are known for their incisive intellect, for knowing the facts, that kind of thing. But right now, your intellect may not be on the greatest of form. Now, I don't take that personally. I'm a Gemini too, so I'm talking to myself as well here. So, don't make assumptions that you've got it right. You might have got it very wrong. And it might be a good idea, rather than, say what's on your mind, or to put theory into practice, it might be a good idea to just reconsider your calculations, because some of your calculations might be wrong. Cancer, it's a bit of a changeover day. The moon is your ruler. It's moving through the last degrees of your star sign. So yes, you are in a strong position, but at the same time, you're not as strong as you were, and maybe it would be useful to consider how other people can help support what you're doing. You don't really have to attempt everything alone, because there are people who can be extremely useful. It's not going to be like, in a completely material way. It's almost like getting emotional support. There are people out there who are prepared to give you emotional support, and if you get emotional support, that means you have more confidence in what you're doing. So don't try to run the whole thing alone. It's because you don't have to. You don't have to do things alone. There's at least one person out there who's really prepared to go out of their way to help you out, and if you've got anything on your mind, to listen to what you've got to say. One thing, if you are an American Cancerian, I mean by American I mean living in the Americas, then this evening you may find your focus starting to shift. You might find that you're more suddenly you find yourself more thinking about yourself. You're going to become a bit more proud. You're going to have an increased desire for attention, but that's fine. But don't overdo it. If you get attention, that's great. If you don't feel you're getting enough attention, just don't worry about it. Don't force yourself onto other people this evening. But that's only if you're an American Cancerian. If you're or when I say an American Cancerian, as I said, a Cancerian who is in the Americas today. If you're in Europe, Asia, Australasia, you don't have to worry about it. Leo, okay, the Sun is still trine Jupiter. It's separating. Now, the Sun is your ruler. And as I said yesterday, the Sun was exactly trine Jupiter, and I took the view that this was very fortunate. It makes it easy for you to get things done and to be successful, particularly on a material level. It's not okay. I'm not talking about the kind of luck where, suddenly, I don't know, a ton of money appears from nowhere. I'm talking about the kind of luck that if you work hard, you get the rewards. So that's still around. However, I think you're going to be conscious of the world in which you are living, and you are going to be conscious that the world that you're living in is not perfect. You're going to see some of the darkness, some of the evil. Yeah, I mean the word evil. Some of the corruption that's around you, maybe in your community, maybe in the world at large, and that could bother you, and you have to kind of work out, how do you respond to it? Do you just ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist? I mean, I suppose that's a possibility, and certainly if you're dealing with the kind of situation which puts you at risk, then sure, you've got to take evasive action. But if it's just something where you feel that you need to speak up about it, then maybe that's the right thing to do. Write a letter, for example. So yes, you are aware of the evil that men and women do, and maybe you have to consider what is an appropriate response. Virgo. Well, Virgo, it's still a situation where you're a bit hypersensitive to detail. It still bothers you. It's not a situation as I said yesterday, it's not a situation where you feel that you can just be quiet. You really might feel that it's a time where you need to say something. But I would suggest that maybe you need to take a step back, and as I think as the day progresses, especially if you're in the Americas, you're going to increasingly realize that there's not really much point in criticizing people, not much point in picking an argument. You perhaps you have a maturity to realize that it's not really going anywhere. And maybe this is a Virgoan lesson. You have to sort of understand the imperfections in the world, accept them, and not really take them to heart, because I think it's a situation, not right now, where I'm just not convinced that you can do very much about it. Yet, from a social perspective, the moon is moving through a sector of your solar chart which is very, very sociable, and it's making a trine to Venus. Particularly at the beginning of the day, all day long if you're in Eurasia, Australasia, and so I think you can make some useful contacts socially, and that might distract you in a positive way. Libra, you've probably done what you have to do. I know that at the moment you've been quite keen to make an impression, but it might have reached the stage where you've done it all. If you haven't achieved something that perhaps you were hoping you were going to achieve, then maybe you're not going to achieve it today. So So don't chase it. And particularly if you're going into work today, you might have a particular goal that you want to achieve. Consider the possibility that you might not be able to, but you might not be able to achieve it. It maybe you'll have to wait until after the new year. Now, one warning I do have to give you, Virgo, is that if you're dealing with other people, you have to be careful. Because of that Mars square Neptune that I was talking about. Mars, in the in the Libran horoscope, Mars rules your opposite sign of Aries. So Mars is about other people you might be in partnership with, be in a relationship with, and Mars is square Neptune. So some of the people around you are going to be deluded and unreliable. And if you're having negotiations about money today, you have to consider the possibility that you're not hearing the whole truth. And again, I don't think you should make commitments, and I think it's going to be quite important. It's quite important that you get a second opinion. Scorpio. I've just talked about Mars square Neptune in reference to Libra. Mars is your ruling planet, and Mars is square Neptune. Now, Scorpio, you are quite an emotional sign, all things being equal. But it's quite possible that your emotions let you down. They might just run round and round and round in circles, and in a sort of ever escalating spiral. And you might get emotional about things, and because you're emotional about things, you might make mistakes, and you might do something that you later regret. Be particularly careful about money. This Mars square Neptune might encourage you to make a financial commitment that is not wise, or you might buy something. You might think it's a good thing to buy, might help you, something maybe, I don't know, looks beautiful, spur of a moment purchase. I wouldn't recommend that. I would spend as little money as possible, and watch out for people making bold claims, and don't make bold claims yourself, because I think your bold claims, you might not be able to substantiate them in the real world. Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius, I think it does perhaps depend where you are. I think if you're in Europe, Asia, Australasia, then I think that today you're not really going to be in the mood for wild socializing, but you're nonetheless in quite a strong position. The moon is in Cancer, and it's in mutual reception to Jupiter, so you're going to be really tuned into your own feelings. And I mean, you have been actually quite well tuned into your feelings over the last few days, and you are tuned into your feelings. And if you can sort of take a step back, you might sort of be able to watch people behave, look at what people are doing, even looking at what society is doing, and really understand what's going on. And I think that could be putting you in a good position. Now, if you are a Sagittarian and you're in the Americas, then towards the end of the day, the moon does change sign. Now, that's a bit of a two-edged sword because on one hand, the moon moves into a fire sign and Sagittarius is a fire sign. That's great. On the other hand, well, Jupiter is your ruler, is no longer in mutual reception with the moon by exaltation. So at the end of the day, Sagittarians in the Americas will, they'll feel a sense of optimism. I feel that they want to sort of expand their horizons. But the question is, do you actually have the strength to do it? Maybe not. So have your big ideas towards the end of the day, but don't necessarily act on them. At least not straight away. Capricorn. Well, Capricorn, you may be feeling a bit tense. You may feel that when you look at the world around you, you may feel that something needs to change. That it's just not good enough. You just know that you almost think that the world needs a revolution. That it can't just go on like this. Yet you also know that other people are pretty useless. They're really not going to be able to get anything done, and that might make you, I don't like to use the word depressed, but that might sort of give you a sort of negative view of the people around you. But you have to accept people as they are and accept that most people are pretty lethargic. And you also have to accept that you have a burning need for change. So Capricorn, that's the challenge. What are you going to do? How are you going to create the change that you seek? Well, you can do it, but it's just going to take some time. You're just going to have to grind away. And then I think in the end, you will be able to create the change you're looking for. And on the way, I do think you might get some help. You're not the only person on the planet. You're not the only person in your community. There is another person in this community who does share your vision and your aspirations, and maybe you need to reach out to them and discuss what needs to be done. Aquarius. Actually, Aquarius, what I just said about Capricorn it kind of applies to you. You're an Aquarius. Many Aquarians are quite idealistic. You like to see the world in a different way from other people. You are different, and I certainly mean that in a positive sense. But Aquarians can just often feel that they just don't get enough support, that they don't get the kind of appreciation that they deserve. It's often forgotten that Aquarius and Leo, that Leo is the opposite sign to Aquarius. So at some level, every Aquarian has a secret Leo trying to get out. You say you don't need attention, you want to do things your own way, but I think most Aquarians actually have a need to be taken seriously, even if they don't admit it. And you are, like Capricorns, are a little despairing of what's going on around you, and you just might feel that you're not getting any support and no one's interested in what you have to say, and you might think that you're the only person who really understands the world as it is. But don't despair. If you're in the Americas, the moon is about to change sign. This evening, the moon is going to move from Cancer into Leo. Leo, your opposite sign. This may be your chance for this evening. Maybe you can get some attention. Maybe if you express yourself in the right way, you can get people to start listening to you. So Aquarius, don't give up on humanity, at least not yet. Pisces. Okay, Pisces, it's not a bad day, because today there is a grand trine in water. So what that means is that the moon is in late Cancer, it's making a trine to Venus in late Cancer, and the moon is also making a trine to Neptune in late Cancer. So you've got these three planets in water signs, moon in Cancer, Neptune in Pisces, Venus in Scorpio, and they're all trying to trine each other. And so Pisces, that does make you very sensitive. Okay, if you're an American Pisces, I think your sensitivity will start to peak sort of late afternoon, after this evening, late after, if you're in the Americas, the grand trine will start to break up. But in other parts of the world, I think this grand trine energy is going to be very much with you all day long. But Pisces, that does make you really sensitive, and your emotions are really firing on all cylinders. Okay, there is a danger that you misunderstand your emotions, or you get the wrong end of the stick. That is a possibility. But it's not a time for reaching conclusions. Just feel what's going on around you, and I think somewhere in those feelings is going to be a sense of actually what needs to be done. And I think it's a time when you can have a certain sort of oneness with your environment. Really feel that almost on a spiritual level. I should say something, though, about the Mars square Neptune. Mars is moving through Sagittarius, and in the Piscean chart, Sagittarius has a strong connection with career. So if you're working today, you're going to really want results. But that Mars, Mars, the energy planet, moving through your solar 10th house, really wants results. But that Mars squares Neptune. So in your attempts to get things done, you might mess things up because you can't see things clearly. You've got Neptune. Neptune has been moving through your star sign for a long time. I don't know, off the top of my head, I had 10 years or so, but it's moving towards the close of that. So Mars square Neptune, you could make a mistake in terms of work and career. So watch out for that. But it's only a mistake if you act on something. You could perhaps gather the information, consider why you might be about to make a mistake, but just collect the emotional data. And then perhaps you can think about it, over the next few days, and then perhaps in a new year, you'll have a clearer sense of the true picture. Okay, so that's the astrology, and now I want to switch to the I Ching. So as always, I ask the question, what is Thursday going to be like for people watching this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram 32. Hexagram 32 is about duration. It's called duration. It's about being able to see something through, and that seems to be a worthy thing to do. We have certain talents and abilities which are with us, which are always with us, and we need to nurture those talents and abilities, and we need to really, see them through. But, this hexagram duration, as we know, is taking place, has been cast in a day when we've got Mars square Neptune. And that does create a certain amount of misunderstanding, chaos, messages going in the wrong place, and we might actually find it difficult, at least in the first instance, to really get anything done. If we're trying to see something through, we might find that we haven't really got the energy, we haven't got the resources, that we're kind of stuck. There's something we want to do, we know what we want to do, but we just haven't got what it takes. And matters could be made worse by the fact that we may get distracted by our own emotions. It's all well and good if everything's flowing smoothly, but when we start to when we hit a block, we might be thinking, "Oh God, it's this block again." You've hit this block again and again and again, getting moody about it, angry about it, and so that could really slow things down. So we do have to be aware of that, and then we keep going, and there is, in the end, there is light at the end of the tunnel. But we then have another problem. The concept of duration is about doing things in the same way. There's a strong sense of being reliable. So if we've got a difficult issue that we're trying to work out, it may be a social issue, it may be something going on, maybe in our home regarding other people, maybe an issue at work. It might feel that the right thing to do is to just keep persevering, but maybe it's not. And what I'm trying to do here is I am trying to reinterpret what the I Ching is. The I Ching, to be frank, can be quite sexist, because it's a Confucian thing written 3,000 years ago. So what the I Ching does is it says that for this moving line, this fifth line moving, it says that perseverance is good for the woman, but not good for the man. And its logic is that the woman is supposed to be in the house, sorting out the household, and it's right for her to just be there all the time doing the same old things, whereas the man, he has to be more flexible, because that's how he functions. The flexibility, according to the I Ching, is more of a male thing. Now, I'm not going to leave it at that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of try to reinterpret that and say, well, it depends who you are, and it depends on the situation. It's not about gender. It's about what is appropriate for the situation. So you have to look at the situation you're in, and you have to ask, is it appropriate to just to keep going, to be persevering, even if there are difficulties, because you take the view that this is the right way to see things through to a favourable conclusion? Or is it a situation where you need to be more flexible? Perhaps you've tried one strategy, and if you carry on with this strategy, it's just not going to work. And you need to be, you need to be flexible. You need to think about something else. So that's how I think I would conclude in my description of duration. But this hexagram duration, it does move, because we have we have 4 moving lines. And so this hexagram, it moves to hexagram 17, which is following. And I think this is a more sort of unambiguous hexagram. It's really saying that once you work through all the issues with duration, I think you will find that your charisma will start to develop. You don't even have to have a high-profile social life to see this charisma. Indeed, you may be able to retreat into your own world, and the people who are worth bothering with are going to want to be in touch with you, because they're going to take the view that you've got something useful to say. And at the same time, the following can be seen in a different way. It can be seen as in terms of perhaps chasing and pursuing. And chasing and pursuing what? Chasing and pursuing a set of goals, something that's lost, that needs to be found. And you can actually find something that you're looking for. And by finding something that you're looking for, you can get a lot of credit with this. So looking at the I Ching overall, it's quite it's quite a difficult situation overall, and there's a lot to work through. But I think if you're able to work through it all, you can make the right choices, decide whether it's a situation where you need to persevere or change your strategy. Then I think the day should be okay, and actually should have a fairly satisfactory conclusion. Okay, that's the I Ching. So I want to go back to the astrology, and I want to look at Jill Biden's horoscope. Well, in fact, I want to look at a number of other horoscopes, because there's something weird about her chart. It's a chart, but I'm not saying that I don't feel it's a chart that I really find fascinating overall. But there are features of the chart that I think really do have to be pointed out. And I want to start. Not with Jill Biden's chart, but I want to talk about. I want to actually look at Joe Biden's first wife. So his first wife, Nelia Biden. Now, she died in a car crash with along with her daughter, and her two sons were seriously injured. That would be Beau and Hunter. Now, what I want to actually focus on, I don't want to look at her chart in any detail at all. I just want to focus on her Uranus. Nelia Biden had her Uranus at 3 degrees 48 Gemini. Okay, that's what, okay, now Uranus is a slow-moving planet. It goes through a sign approximately every 7 years, has an 84-year cycle. But yeah, her Uranus was at 3:48 Gemini. I don't know her time of birth. I just gone for noon. Where was she born? In Skaneateles, New York. Okay, so now let's look at Joe Biden's chart. Bearing in mind that her Uranus is at 3 degrees 48 Gemini. So here's Joe Biden. So you will see that Joe Biden has his descendant at 3 degrees 11 Gemini. He's got his Uranus at 246 Gemini. So Joe Biden has Uranus exactly on the descendant, really close. This is one of the reasons why I think he's such a dangerous president. But his wife had her Uranus at pretty much the same degree as he did, which is not surprising because Uranus is a slow-moving planet. It's a generational planet. Both Biden and his wife were born in 1942, so it's not surprising we've got Uranus at 3 degrees. Both of them have Uranus at 3 degrees Gemini, and and Biden has his descendant at 311 Gemini. So you got that. Biden and his first wife both have Uranus 3 degrees Gemini, and Biden, assuming he's born at 8:30 a.m. in Scranton, Pennsylvania on November the 20th, 1942, has his descendant at 311 Gemini. Now, Biden lost his first wife on November the 18th, 1972. So let's have a look at the chart for when he lost his wife, which was, there we are, December the 18th, 1972. I think it happened in Delaware. Now, this is the accident chart. So we can see that the moon is at 4 degrees Gemini. So that moon at 4 degrees Gemini was pretty much on Biden's descendant, and it was conjunct his Uranus, and it was conjunct his first wife's Uranus. So this 4 degrees Gemini, 4 degrees Gemini, is really important. Then we also know that Biden, he's vice president, wasn't he? In 2008, he got elected to be vice president. And so his partner, if you like, was Barack Obama. I mean, Barack Obama was elected president in 2008. And Joe Biden was his vice president. Let's have a look at Joe Biden's chart quickly. Sorry, Barack Obama's chart. So Barack Obama's chart, there's Barack Obama's moon, 3 degrees Gemini. So this 3 degrees Gemini keeps coming up. So if we were to look at Jill Biden's chart, where do you think her moon is? Yeah, any ideas? Okay. There is Jill Biden's chart. Her moon is at 5 degrees Gemini. Okay, not 3 or 4 degrees Gemini, but that's her chart. So this 3, 4, 5 Gemini does keep coming up. And so two of Biden's big relationships, his relationship with Jill Biden and his relationship with Barack Obama, is with two people who had their moon at 3, in early Gemini, right on his Gemini descendant. I'm not quite sure what that means, but it certainly sounds to me pretty impressive. So this is Jill Biden's horoscope. She's got a load of stuff in Gemini. Not just the moon in Gemini, but she has got the sun in Gemini, and she's got the Mars in Gemini. Notice that her Mars is on the Sun-Moon midpoint. Now, if you have, if you're familiar with midpoints, you'll know that a planet on the Sun Moon midpoint, it is emphasized. It's likely to be prominent in someone's life, and it's quite possible that that person will really manifest, will really manifest that planet. Charles Harvey and Michael Harding, in their book Working with Astrology, they really talk about the Sun Moon midpoint as, I think they call it something like the cosmic marriage. And I think it was Charles Harvey, I think, wrote the section on this, a section in which he talked about the horoscope of Janis Joplin, and Janis Joplin was a Capricorn, and some astrologers had found it really difficult to make sense of Janis Joplin's chart. But Charles Harvey pointed out that in Janis Joplin's case, she had Jupiter aspecting her, making a hard aspect. I can't remember offhand what the aspect was. It was, it was in the conjunction, square, opposition, semi-square, sesquiquadrate series. But she had Jupiter on her Sun Moon midpoint. And she really was a Jupiter person, apparently, whatever this sort of hypermost, whatever that word is, she was really over the top. So she was embodying Jupiter. Now, I don't know really anything about Jill Biden's personality, but she has Mars on the Sun Moon midpoint. That suggests to me a certain sense of assertiveness, certainly protectiveness. There's something quite combative about that Mars on the Sun Moon midpoint. I mean, I don't mean this in a bad sense. I don't have any opinion on Jill Biden, no opinion whatsoever. But that Mars does seem to be strongly sort of highlighted, and she's, and of course she's got a Moon-Mars conjunction, and she's got a Sun-Mars conjunction. A Moon-Mars in a female chart can be a woman who you should not argue with. This is a woman who believes she is right. Kind of similar thing with a Sun-Mars conjunction. But I think with Moon being a female planet, I mean, I know she's got both the Sun and the Moon in Gemini. So whatever way you look at it, she's a Gemini. But in a female chart, you'd expect the Moon to be stronger than the Sun, to be more important than the Sun. So she has got a Moon-Mars conjunction. And that's probably a major part of who she is. And this conjunction between the Sun, Moon, Mars conjunction is in the sixth house. Sixth house often connected with service. It's quite a detailed house. Six, making sure everything is right, putting in the work. I think it's quite a service-orientated place. And notice how she's got all her planets, or most of her planets, towards the descendant. That probably indicates that she's more about other people, responding to other people, rather than being the person who comes up, necessarily with the ideas and the initiatives and that kind of thing. But that is a general tendency. She's got Jupiter on the IC. That Jupiter in Aries, Jupiter on the IC is quite stable. It's very grounding, but she does have Jupiter square Uranus. There is a certain restlessness there. I don't think it's a bad aspect, Jupiter square Uranus, but it is a restless aspect. Maybe she wants things to get better, Jupiter square Uranus. Maybe that's talking about something about her politics, her social aspirations. Eberton describes the Jupiter-Uranus combination as a thank the Lord aspect, because it's about release and relief. Wanting, Jupiter square Uranus, wanting to, to suddenly improve things. So I think an important part of her chart. So what are we doing with this chart? Well, I think what we should do is we should consider how her chart relates to that of Joe Biden. So if we put Joe Biden in the middle and put so how do the two charts relate to each other? So we can see, as I said at the beginning of this discussion of Jill Biden, is that she has got her moon in Gemini right on his Uranus conjunct the descendant. So from a perspective, from a relationship perspective, that's a powerful contact. So if someone has got their moon, if the woman's moon is on the man's descendant, there's a natural contact. There's a natural connection. If he's Joe Biden with Gemini in the 7th, he's kind of looking for Gemini in the other person. And of course, with Jill Biden with 3 planets in Gemini, in particular the female planet of the moon, I would have thought that is a great contact. So it's not perhaps hard to understand why there was this immediate connection between him. Also, look at the Venus and Jupiter. Joe Biden has got Jupiter at 25 Cancer. Her Venus is at 26 Cancer. So I think she must have seen. I think she said something like, I was reading the Wikipedia entry about Jill Biden, and she met and she talked about Joe Biden. I think she said something like, he's the right man. She talked about his qualities and whatever. I can't remember precisely what she said, but she was very impressed. And she almost by his whatever, was it a real gentleman or whatever? I can't remember the precise thing, but it was very favourable. He made a favourable impression on her. So you can see Jupiter on Cancer, Jupiter exalted in Cancer. Biden's Jupiter exalted in Cancer. Jupiter is a very moral planet, and it hits her Venus, and so she must have been very impressed with his Jupiter in Cancer. But one question that one might ask is, does she have an influence from a political perspective? Can we tell? I think it might be a good idea to look at the connection between Jill Biden and the United States. Oh, one thing, Mars conjunct Saturn. Now, we don't know about that, but Jill Biden's Mars is conjunct Biden's Saturn. Yes, that might be a connection. It might have bring them together. Okay, it might be that Mars is a male planet, and she sort of saw Biden's Saturn in Gemini, and that sort of helped cement the relationship. But maybe we haven't really seen the full potential of that Mars-Saturn conjunction yet. We should remember that Jupiter is, next year Jupiter goes into Gemini. Next year Saturn will be squaring Biden's Saturn. It will also be squaring Jill Biden's Mars. So we don't really know how that is going to work out. But as far as Jill Biden and the United States is concerned, we've got the United States' chart in the middle, and we've got Jill Biden's chart on the outside, and it's kind of weird. There's a lot of connections here. If we take 5:10 p.m. On July the 4th, 1776, as the birthday of the United States when the Declaration of Independence was signed, we get 1221 Sagittarius rising, and Joe Biden's sun is at 1237 Gemini. I don't really know what to make of that. I mean, is that saying that could we see the seventh house as representing the first lady? I find that bizarre because you'd expect more to be the fourth house to represent the first lady, because the 10th house would be the president. But still, her sun has a definite impact on the United States by virtue of hitting its descendant, and this might indicate that kind of behind the scenes, because the seventh house is behind the scenes, maybe the sun is the way she is. It's not just the sun, her sun-Mars conjunction. Maybe sun-Mars represents all the things that she's passionate about. Could be impacting the United States, but in quite a secretive kind of way, because it's on the United States' seventh house cusp. Another thing about the two charts is Saturn and Neptune. Now, Jill Biden's Neptune is at 22 Virgo, and her Saturn is at 14 Libra. So America's United States' Saturn is at 25 Virgo, and its Neptune is at 16 Libra. So her Saturn is conjunct America's Neptune, and her Neptune is conjunct. Her Neptune is hitting the United States' Saturn. Her Saturn is hitting the United States' Neptune. So there's this weird way in which they both have the same. They both have almost the same angular separations between their Saturn and the Neptune. Now, what is Saturn and Neptune? I mean, I see Saturn and Neptune as being about fears. So in some weird way, the fears of Jill Biden and the fears of America are sort of linked. I don't know, what is Jill Biden afraid of that the United States is also afraid of? I don't know. I mean, maybe that's almost a rhetorical question. A fear of the future. What does the future hold? You're trying to create stability at a time when things are falling apart. That's one aspect of it. In the United States' case, it's the Saturn and Neptune of the United States is exactly 22.5 degrees apart, which is a 16th of a circle. So I think that fear is particularly strong for the United States. Her Saturn and Neptune is not quite 22.5 degrees apart. I wouldn't have said they were really in orb of that very tight aspect. But anyway, that is something I noticed. So I think, looking at that chart, I think there is a possibility that she is able to assert herself, because her Sun-Mars conjunction is really hitting the United States' descendant, and it's kind of hitting the United States' Uranus. So as far as what's happening now, I did look at her solar arc directions. She's now 72 years old. So I'm moving the planet 72 degrees, or 72.5 degrees. Well, not quite, but I think she's around 72.5 at the moment. So the solar arc directions. Okay, so here is in the center wheel, I got Jill Biden's chart, and on the outer wheel, I've got the solar arc directions. So what's actually happening here? Well, she has the midheaven opposition. You can see that she's got the midheaven opposition Jupiter. So from a solar arc perspective, this opposition between the midheaven and Jupiter, if we move it 72 degrees, it comes round to the ascendant. So it started this midheaven and hitting her ascendant descendant axis is it's really doing something. She's got there, you can see she's got Jupiter coming up to the conjunction with her descendant. Now that's important for next year, because Jupiter is next year. Jupiter's in early Taurus at the moment, but next year Jupiter goes into Gemini, and Jupiter is going to cross her descendant. So transiting Jupiter next year is going to be crossing her descendant at the same time as solar arc directed Jupiter is going to cross her descendant. So what does that actually mean? Is it fortunate? I mean, you'd think logically it would be fortunate, wouldn't you? But not necessarily. It might be about some kind of release, but one does have to think about the well-being of Joe Biden, because I don't entirely trust Jupiter in that situation. So I think that's something we do have to be aware of. In extreme cases, Jupiter can relate to death. I suppose you could say Jupiter conjunct the seventh house might be, you could say, well, death of the partner. I mean, that's one possibility. That's an extreme possibility. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that's one way you could interpret it. I suppose you could also say, oh, Jupiter's good. I mean, that means he's going to get re-elected. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. Which brings me on to, the final chart I wanted to look at was the chart of the presidential elections, and see what's going on in her chart at the time of the presidential elections. Now, for all we know, Joe Biden might be on the verge of standing down. He might be on the verge of saying he doesn't want to stand again. I mean, I've heard it suggested that he might want to do a Lyndon B. Johnson, and in 1968, I think mainly because of the Vietnam War, he decided he didn't want to run, and so there had to be a primary and so forth. So I mean, that's a possibility. So we don't know for sure, but there you can see it. Jupiter, at the time of the election, Jupiter's at 20 degrees 4 minutes Gemini, so that's right on her descendant. So you could say, well, that's good. Maybe that's good for Joe. That's a great thing to have. By the way, Jupiter is exactly on Donald Trump's north node. Donald Trump has his north node at 20 degrees Gemini. But look at Saturn at the time of the election. Saturn is at 1246 Pisces, and her Sun is at 1237 Gemini. So she's got Jupiter on her descendant, but she's also got Saturn exactly square her Sun. And we should really be watching Saturn through 2024, because Saturn is now direct, and she's got these planets: Moon 5 Gemini, Mars 9 Gemini, Sun 12 Gemini, then her descendant 19 Gemini. And Saturn is going to be going through all of these 4 points next year. Indeed, by June the 29th of 2024, Saturn goes stationary retrograde at, I think, 1926 Pisces. So it goes stationary retrograde right on her ascendant-descendant axis, and having made squares to the Moon, the Mars and Sun, and in particular that Saturn square Mars could be particularly important, because Saturn square Mars, that's also hitting Biden's Saturn. So that Saturn, we really need to watch that. And I mean, I think what I'm kind of suggesting is perhaps if we want to know, if we're trying to work out what's going on with Joe Biden, we should also be looking at what's going on to his wife, because sometimes you can see what's going on in someone's life by looking at what's going on in the people close to them. So, those are a few thoughts about Jill Biden. I think looking at her chart and the USA chart, I think there's a possibility that she is having a real influence, but it will be, I think, very behind the scenes. That's what I'd say. But I mean, it's what I think is really interesting is all these tie-ups, and the fact that Obama and Jill Biden both have their moons in early Gemini, and Joe Biden has his descendant in early Gemini, and these are the two partnerships that he's most known for: his partnership with Barack Obama when he was vice president, and of course his partnership with Jill Biden, who is his wife. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today. I probably went on for far too long. I hope you found that interesting. If you did find it interesting, then please, I'd be very grateful if you like the video. And if you're not subscribed, I'd also be grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. Anyway, thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.